What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another Nick 4K video. Today we're checking out a video from Nerdrotic, and their video is titled Top 10 Disney Star Wars Failures. So for those of you who may not know, I actually started off my channel as, well, I didn't really start off as a Star Wars channel, but I made a Star Wars video. It did really good, so I made another one. Did really good, made another one, and eventually I became a Star Wars channel for several years. In fact, some of you guys who are watching me now might have been around since then, so thanks for sticking around. You guys are the best. And as time went on, I had different life events happen and different situations that effectively I had to put my YouTube life on hold, and then I'd come back, and then I'd put it on hold, and then I'd come back, and I'm hold, and then come back, and it happened a lot. Like I said, this channel is about 10 years old, but if you were to add up all the breaks I took over the last couple years and subtract that from the 10 years, I've really only been doing YouTube for like maybe 4 years. So yeah, but I'm back for good for now. So as a Star Wars YouTuber, I was a big fan ever since like 2005. Revenge of the Sith was really the movie that brought me into the Star Wars fold. And from certain perspectives, I was one of the very first channels on YouTube to be more positive about the prequels, because after I started doing videos, I started noticing other people. I'm not saying I made the prequels great again, but I probably did. But as time went on and Disney kind of just did whatever it wanted with the Star Wars license, I found myself becoming less and less of a fan of what the new Disney Star Wars was. I know there's a lot of fans out there. I know not everything they did was bad, but it's one of those things where it feels like that universe isn't being made for me anymore. So I took a step back, and honestly, I'm kind of just apathetic towards modern Star Wars. And I know for a fact I'm definitely not the only one. So in today's video, we're going to be checking out Nerdrotic's top 10 Disney Star Wars failures. And I'm going to be giving my thoughts on if I agree with them, if I disagree with them. Let me know in the comments below whether you guys agree or disagree as well. Make sure to like, subscribe, turn notifications for more videos. And without further ado, let's jump in. Oh
no. Disney Star Wars has put the dim and diminishing returns
that
after
intro
what was perceived as a promising
10
start
out of 10
turned into fool's
10 out of
gold,
10.
and since then it's been a series of new and unique failures. Things have gotten so bad it's forced the Hollywood Reporter to write this article 8 years too late. Is Disney bad at Star Wars? An analysis. The answer is yes. Disney is very bad at making Disney Star Wars, and the only question left is, what is some of the worst? Well, we here at Nerdrotic have assembled a team of our own to do our own analysis. This is the top 10 Disney Star Wars failures. Number 10, the Galactic Star Cruiser.
Hey, Admiral.
Hello there.
I'm super excited to see what you and your team created.
We cannot wait to have you aboard because Star Wars Galactic Star Cruiser is a first of its kind vacation experience where you get to spend 2 days and 2 nights living out your very own Star Wars story.
We've had nothing to do since 3:30.
Yeah. So we've really focused on making sure we have some of the best entertainment in the galaxy on board.
Please close your eyes and allow your taste buds to awaken.
It's got cold. It's a cold egg.
This is the closest you can get to being in a galaxy far, far away.
It's bad enough that Disney took the Star Wars-themed Galaxy's Edge, which could have been the Wizarding World for Star Wars fans, but it turns out it was closer to the Wonka experience in Glasgow, with a sterile environment, overpriced blue milk, and dysfunctional rides.
Please stay seated.
And a focus on Disney Star Wars characters that came straight from the top, Kathleen Kennedy, who said she didn't want to build a Star Wars land for old fans in their 50s. And that's probably what led to the spectacular failure of something adjacent
Kathleen
to
Kennedy,
Galaxy's
man.
Edge. The Galactic Star Cruiser. Now, there's a video out there that's over 4 hours long that breaks down every single aspect of this disaster, and I recommend you watch it, but I think we can get this done in a couple of minutes. Their first mistake was the promotional trailer. Instead of having a hotel based in, say, Cloud City, where you and your family could dine with Lando Calrissian, Han Solo, Princess Leia, Chewbacca, Darth Vader, and Boba Fett, or the little tykes can hang out with the Ugnaughts and scrap C-3PO, or take the wife to watch Han Solo get tortured. Instead, Disney decided to torture you and make you pay for it by giving you rooms that were smaller than my prison cell. But why hang out with Lando Calrissian and Lobot when you can hang out with Disney original characters, including a blue middle-aged woman and a Twi'lek singer who's also an activist who fights for the rights of her people?
Look above and see the world slowly emerge before your eyes.
And why in the hell would you want to watch Luke Skywalker duel Darth Vader when you can watch Rey put down her lightsaber, pick it back up, and duel Kylo Ren? With an average double occupancy room price of $4,800 and suites that range from $12,000 to $20,000 with add-ons, it forced one executive to admit that Galactic Star Cruiser was a tough sell, and we agree. Trying to get Star Wars fans to shell out thousands of dollars a night for a hotel that doesn't have any Star Wars in it is a tough sell. Unsurprisingly, Disney took a $300 million loss and shut the Galactic Star Cruiser down.
Wow.
Number 9.
I heard about that, but I never realized it was that big of like a bomb. Holy crap. That's awful. You know what it feels like? It feels like someone said, hey, here's this idea. Let's not put any thought into it. Let's just do it. It's almost as if that's how Disney has tackled everything that comes to Star Wars. Maybe not everything, but like 90% of Disney Star Wars is like, hey, here's this idea. Let's do it. There's no work being done to get that thing the best it can be. It's just, hey, here's this idea. It make money. Do it. That's just it. They don't care. And the best example for me is the sequel trilogy. I know there's a lot of people out there who love it, and I think there are aspects to the sequel trilogy that are really good. Just ultimately, man, it is just a bad trilogy. So I do hope that the next movie's being announced, the next trilogy or whatever, I hope they just put the time in, let one solo creator kind of lead the entire project instead of bringing in multiple different writers and directors and stuff. Stop doing that. It's not working. Don't do that. We'll talk about that more, I'm sure, in this video, but let's continue.
Disney Star Wars Outlaws.
This is like a vast looking game. I think Ubisoft has done a really, really good job, by the way.
You there?
Never mind.
Touted as one of the biggest and best Disney Star Wars games ever made, with a budget ranging from $200 to $300 million and a team of 600 people working on it for over 5 years, the expectations were high. That was at least until the trailer was released, which is somewhat of a surprise because it features the type of character Disney Star Wars hasn't put into a Disney Star Wars product for at least a month, the female protagonist. And this time it's yet another derivative female version of Han Solo, Ma'am Solo.
It is ma'am.
Hi, my name is Umberly Gonzalez, and I play Kay Vess in Star Wars Outlaws. Kay Vess is a thief. She's a scoundrel. She's really good at sneaking around. She's so fearless. There's no stopping her.
Yes, she is a scoundrel, but she's not as cool and collected as a Han Solo or as a Lando. She has a bit more vulnerability. She's kind of rough around the edges. She's got this kind of crack in the armor, and so you get to relate to a character like that. It could be like you or me or anybody out there that's playing, which I think people are gonna love.
Yeah. But you have to tip your hat to the 600 people who worked on this game
She's
and
pretty.
put their nose to the grindstone to make this actress look like this.
Matt Damon.
It takes a certain kind of commitment to fuck up this much, and Ubisoft and Disney sunk to the occasion.
You know, I Out of all the things that I've heard about that game, that was the thing for me too. Not that I necessarily thought that the character was ugly. It just didn't look like... I saw her and I said, I don't want to be her in a game. I don't want to play her. That was it. That's it. I had no interest in playing her, and I was unsold from the game right off the bat from that point. I'm sure a lot of other people were the exact same way. And the actress is so beautiful, and to do that, I just don't understand. Like, why can't we have pretty girls in games anymore? Like, why? I don't know.
With gameplay that, according to my fellow gamers, is just embarrassing. That ranges from frustratingly mediocre to broken.
It's not a functional game. It's like broken to the core, not just because it's buggy. A lot of its inherent like ideas and sort of like conceits as a game are unpolished, unrefined, incomplete, or just like silly.
It should surprise no one that this game is a flop, only selling 1 million of the 5.5 million units needed just to break even. And while Disney stock isn't exactly doing spectacular right now, Star Wars Outlaws hurt Ubisoft the most. It was a contributing factor for its stock tanking to an 11-year low, and now Ubisoft may be for sale at a discount.
They're making The Mandalorian. They need to come to you for advice, right? For more Star Wars TV shows.
Oh, for the day then someone wakes up over there in Disney and make a proper Star Wars with the bounty hunter. Let's focus on my spaceship and myself and going out to get some bounty. All action. We'll see what happens.
Poor guy.
I'm cruising on my Bantha on the sands of Tatooine. Yes, I'm cruising on my Bantha on the sands of Tatooine. Like a panther. Yes? Maybe not.
Number 8, Boba Fett. Arguably the worst made Disney Star Wars until very recently. And 3 of the 7 episodes were directed by Robert Rodriguez. A series so obviously hastily put together, Lucasfilm didn't give the show's star, Tamara Morrison, time to prepare for the role. Because somehow Boba Fett gained weight in the Sarlacc and became Boba Fett.
So I had to do some bench press and some curls. And I tried to cut back on the beers so the stomach wouldn't be out too far.
Tamara's voice is so
some of
good.
these fans,
I love his
fans were
voice.
calling me Boba Fett.
Boba Fett.
Whether it's suffering from Tuscan syndrome, dealing with a bunch of space Vespa riding Hot Topic models, the show was a complete and comical disaster.
Spin. I remember everyone loved the spin. I loved it.
Like a panther.
And to make things worse, Boba Fett doesn't appear in almost 2 episodes of his own 7-episode series. Those 2 episodes were actually dedicated to voice actor Pedro Pascal's Boba Fett knockoff, The Mandalorian, Yoda knockoff, Baby Yoda Grogu, and Luke Skywalker, completing the circle jerk of creative bankruptcy, who turns out to be a major asshole after he sends the 50-year-old infant Baby Yoda packing from his Jedi dojo.
You want all the girls to think you're a wangless dork? Because you could stop your training right now and you could walk outside and let the whole world know you're a loser. Now get the hell out of my dojo.
One thing this guest appearance did accomplish was completely ruin the entire point, and I use this word very loosely, premise of The Mandalorian Season 2 and 3.
Points. Winner. There you go.
Number 7. There is a tie between The Mandalorian Season 3.
Okay, so I'll talk about Book of Boba Fett. So the Book of Boba Fett and Kenobi were both shows that they were both movies that were turned into shows for Disney Plus. I think that they both would have been a lot better as just standalone movies. There's elements in both of those shows. I'm sure they'll talk about Kenobi later in this top 10. But they were supposed to be movies, and you can feel it. You can feel they were movies, and then they were like, hey, let's make these movies into TV shows for Disney Plus. And the problem is when you take a story that's only supposed to be 2 hours long, and you make it 6 or 7 hours, it gets messed up. you know? And so the Book of Boba Fett was one of those situations where they didn't know what to do with him. So they brought in Mando to kind of carry half the season. And the sad thing about the Book of Boba Fett is really that the best episodes are the ones that Boba Fett's not even in. You know what I'm saying? Well, besides, I like the last one. The last one was all right. But the rest of the episodes that was focused on Mando, they were the better episodes. And effectively, the Book of Boba Fett, instead of being like a nice legacy film for Boba, it became kind of like The Mandalorian season 2.5. And that's just disappointing. So could have been better, and a lot of stuff that when it comes to Disney Star Wars could have been better for sure. And he's talking about Mando season 3 and Ahsoka. So let's check it out.
And Ahsoka.
My kids actually were showing me on social media that Lizzo was posting a lot of stuff around this. They would be like, Dad, you're doing all these Baby Yoda videos. We're like, we could do something really cool and interesting. And wouldn't it be great to be working with somebody would be so excited to be working with Grogu?
How does season 3 continue the Mandalorian's quest to learn more about himself and explore his relationship with the child?
The Mandalorian Season 3 will only be remembered for two things, the Jack Black and Lizzo cameo. Wow. And the Mandalorian giving the dark saber to Bo-Katan, and not in the good way. Also featured in one of the 2 episodes of the Boba Fett series without Boba Fett is Ahsoka. A series that consists of women crossing their arms and staring at each other while they search for balls. A show that completely wasted the last appearance of Ray Stevenson, featuring another cheap cameo from Hayden Christensen.
He vatored!
And turning the formidable tactical master Grand Admiral Thrawn into Homer Simpson. A masterclass of ineptitude brought to you by Robert Rodriguez, Jon Favreau, and Dave Filoni, and we're just getting started. Number 6, Obi-Wan.
Yeah, here's Kenobi. All right, so before we talk about Kenobi, Mando season 3, I didn't even watch. I saw what was happening, and I didn't even jump in. I'm glad I didn't. I do hear there are like a couple cool things about season 3, but ultimately it's a season you can kind of skip, and that's unfortunate because Mando 1 and 2 I really liked. So when they did that, that's just disappointing. As far as Ahsoka goes, Ahsoka kind of felt like Rebels season 5 to me, so I kind of dug it. There were some elements to it that was really good. There were also some really rough stuff. One thing I can't hate on is the Anakin, Hayden Christensen coming back as Anakin. So good. I know it could have been better. I know it definitely was shoehorned in. I get that, but man, I love it. I want to see more of it. And actually the best part about that happening is it kind of introduces the idea that like Anakin is still out there. You know, like he's in this, he's in the Force. He's like the next father type of thing. Like there's something is deeper out there, and maybe one day in a future film he might show back up again and maybe help out Rey in some type of perspective. There's definitely somewhere they can go with the idea of what they introduced with Anakin, and I want to see it. So I like that aspect. But as far as the show itself goes, it's rough. It is definitely rough. I didn't really mind Ahsoka. I like the fact that she's kind of more of like a quiet person compared to what she used to be. It makes sense, she grew up. But yeah, there's not much more you can say that's necessarily good about it. I will say this, they showed it at the end there. I am getting tired of watching characters get stabbed and then like the next episode them being okay, because that's what killed Qui-Gon, you know. And Qui-Gon was like one of the strongest Jedis of his time, you know what I'm saying? So I don't know why females keep getting stabbed and then living from them. I don't get it, but hey, I don't know. All right, next one.
One Kenobi.
Choose life, choose a job, choose a career, choose a family, choose rotting away at the end of it all, pissing your last in a miserable home. Choose life.
After alienating all the original trilogy fans, it was time for Disney to capitalize on the prequel fans. The very same ones they disrespected with the first line of dialogue in The Force Awakens.
This will begin to make things right.
Touted by fade-in Kathleen Kennedy as the rematch of the century, Obi-Wan Kenobi turned out to be a contributing factor to the disappointment of the century, Disney Star Wars. And the first red flag hoisted up by Lucasfilm, letting us all know there might be something wrong with this series, a company well known for turning the audience into an enemy, more on that later, decided to try something new with the fan attack, making it preemptive.
They're trying to help you prepare for this backlash, and there are people out there who say some really awful things.
You know, they've been really great about connecting me with the people who've like been through this. I haven't necessarily reached out. You know what I mean? It's weird.
This was followed by a tweet from the Star Wars account on Twitter warning against any backlash. Coincidentally enough, just a couple of days later, Moses Ingram made a video talking about the backlash she received on Instagram.
Yeah, weird.
And after that, we got an impassioned car video from Ewan McGregor talking about the backlash that, quite frankly, was a better performance than anything it did in Kenobi. And now we know why Lucasfilm went through all that trouble, because they released the show and it was awful. What should have been an old Western type series of the old Jedi Master babysitting a future quitter. I mean, he had one job: keep your eye on Luke Skywalker at all costs. And what does Disney Star Wars do? Have him f*** off in the first episode. And then it devolves into a modern Lucasfilm fever dream. Whether it's the 10-year-old Princess Leia who waddles like a toddler being able to outrun
the running
Flea
scene
from
is
the
pretty
Red Hot
bad.
Chili Peppers, Obi-Wan Kenobi, or Riva, or Illyria Sand from Game of Thrones knocking down a stormtrooper, or the wise Jedi Master Obi-Wan Kenobi being unable to get through a gate he can clearly walk around, or the wise Jedi Master Obi-Wan Kenobi hiding little Princess Leia under his coat, or the rematch of the century being some of the worst lightsaber dueling while outside of Ahsoka. When it was all said and done, the prequel fans now completely understand how the original trilogy fans felt.
Disappointed!
There's so, I don't know, there's something so relatable about her.
Yeah, Kenobi, man, it's sad. Kenobi could have been so good. It really could have. But like I said, it was a movie that they wanted to turn a 2-hour movie, maybe an hour and a half to 2-hour movie. They wanted to take that, they wanted to turn it into 6 episodes of an hour each. It doesn't work. It doesn't work. Reva could have been really cool, but they overdid her. It's really strange how they do that with their female characters. I don't know why. Like, why do they overdo them? You know, just make a good character first. It doesn't matter if it's a male or female. Just make them a solid character first. It almost seems like they kind of beat you over the head with like, hey, strong female character. It's like, yeah, we get it. Like, why does it matter if she's like a girl or boy? You know what I mean? Like why can't she just be a solid character first? That's disappointing. I think a lot of these situations would be better if they didn't try to like hit you with a message with everything. Like, just tell a fun story. You know, that's what the first 6 movies are about. I mean, sure, there were underlying themes about real life situations going on in those movies, but it didn't beat you over the head. You were still able to kind of explore these worlds and jump into the fantasy, the science fantasy of it all. It just makes me sad. Whenever people ask you, hey, why don't you do Star Wars videos anymore? It's because when I talk about Star Wars, it makes me sad. Because I was the biggest fan. I was. Even look back here, look at my posters. I put those up when I first moved in. I'll still never pull them down because I have the whole set of all 9 of them. You can't see that wall, but I have a poster of Star Wars over there. I actually have an Anakin lightsaber somewhere back here on my shelf. I was the biggest fan of Star Wars. And so to see something you love, it's like watching like a grandparent that you knew your entire life growing up and slowly watching them get like dementia and just dissolve away. And I had that situation happen to me about like maybe 8 years ago too. So I actually know how that actually feels. But it's one of those things where, man, just watching my grandfather just degrade to the point where like not only was his memory faded, but like he himself just didn't look like the same person I knew. And that's what's happening to Disney. So I'm sorry to get a little real with you guys with this, but like this isn't even like a bit. I'm just being honest. That's why I'm not a Star Wars YouTuber anymore. That's why I don't cover Star Wars anymore. Well, occasionally I'll do Star Wars stuff, but effectively that's why I moved on. I'm no longer interested in the franchise because the people in charge don't know how to run it. And that's just it. Even look at the screen right now. This guy is responsible for like the MCU as we know it with Iron Man. And he did some really solid things when it came to The Mandalorian. But even he has been fucking up as of late. And it's just so disappointing. And I don't know if he's actually messing up on purpose, or if he wants out of it, so he's trying to get himself fired, or maybe he actually does believe all the shit he does. It's disappointing. So, with that said, let's get back to the video. Let's go. I'm not trying to bring anyone down who actually likes Star Wars. I'm glad you love Star Wars. If you love Star Wars, awesome. But for me, it just isn't what it's supposed to be. So,
in that role, and she's playing the type of role that I would have, that's the type of action figure I would have wanted the most.
You got an action figure? I didn't get an action figure.
Phase 2, man. Season 2, don't worry.
You're lucky, the great Gina Carano.
Number 5, the firing of Gina Carano.
Oh gosh.
After the abysmal Disney trilogy, the one saving grace for Disney Star Wars was The Mandalorian, written by Iron Man's Jon Favreau and starring Game of Thrones' Pedro Pascal, and featuring the most popular product Disney Star Wars had ever created, Baby Yoda.
Baby Yoda.
But another popular character was called Cara Dune, played by former MMA fighter turned actress Gina Carano.
I love Cara Dune. Cara Dune is a badass, and I can genuinely say that she's been one, if not my most favorite character to play. I'm so grateful. I just absolutely love being here.
And let me just add, Cara was a tough character without the story having to tell you. And there were the occasional times where like the story did that, but like Cara was a tough character. You could tell from her look. You could tell from the way that she carried herself. Sure, Gina's not the best actress, but from the way the character was presented, it wasn't even like you were getting hit over the head with the fact that she was a strong female, like, side lead to the story. You know, you just knew she was, and it worked so good. And then something switched, and we get what we get.
That's cool.
I'm very proud of The Mandalorian. It's about becoming part of something larger than yourself.
This is the way.
Did you expect The Mandalorian to become such a global phenomenon?
Honestly, I was just happy to get to make Star Wars.
Everything was looking up for this series, especially after a finale that featured a cameo with Luke Skywalker that made grown men cry. The sky was the limit. The only question is, how would Lucasfilm follow this up? Well, of course, Kathleen Kennedy was snatched defeat out of the jaws of victory and fired Gina Carano.
This is not the way. Actress Gina Carano is no longer a part of the Mandalorian cast after an online protest called for her firing after a social media post. Carano's post likened the experience of Jewish people during the Holocaust to the U.S. political climate. A Lucasfilm spokesperson says Carano is not currently employed by them with, quote, no plans for her to be in the future.
In truth, she was fired because she wouldn't put her pronouns in her bio and bend the knee to the mob of Jack Dorsey's Twitter. But eventually the truth came out. There was a lot of people at Lucasfilm that conspired against her, and Kathleen Kennedy wanted her gone despite others who worked on the show who didn't, like Jon Favreau. To keep her job, they wanted her to go through a struggle session with 40 members of the LGBTQ plus community in a Zoom meeting.
And I was like, okay, I'll watch your documentaries and I'll talk to your people, but I'm not going to get on a Zoom call with 45 different people who can have their phones out videotaping me, and I feel like that's extremely abusive.
After the firing, something happened that Disney didn't expect. A massive backlash against them. I Stand With Gina Carano was trending. She even had some co-stars have her back, including the late great Carl Weathers and Bill Burr.
No, she was an absolute sweetheart. Yeah. Super nice fucking person, and you know, whatever. And somehow someone will take this video and they'll make me say something else and, you know, try to get rid of my bald action figure.
While still under the contract at Lucasfilm, Gina Carano was asked to unfollow certain Twitter accounts, including Geeks
Bill's
and Gamers.
Character. Hey everyone, I'm here with someone special.
There were current Lucasfilm employees starting GoFundMes in protest of Gina. And interestingly enough, just a few short months later, her co-star Pedro Pascal posted a tweet that called half the country Confederates and one of the bad guys from WW2. And after that, he was not reprimanded, he was not forced to apologize, and he wasn't forced to go through a 40-person Zoom room struggle session. No, he was awarded with every role in Hollywood. Now, Gina could have bent the knee, read her apology, did whatever it takes to keep her Star Wars role. Instead, she decided to be one of the precious few to stand up and fight back, showing she has the biggest metaphorical balls in Hollywood. And now, with the help of Elon Musk, she's suing Disney. And one could make a pretty good argument that Lucasfilm has yet to recover from this.
Let me tell you how awesome this is. Pull this up. Check this out. Do you know when Disney's valuation was the highest ever in the history of its company? February 2021 is when Disney was worth the most ever. $341 billion. They lost $140 billion from the day they fired you.
And I think, honestly, Hollywood's shook. I think they're shook. I think they see the hypocrisy. I think they see the double standard.
I'll look at that graph quick. Yeah, so effectively, I mean, if you really want to look at it, that was kind of where, like, when woke was really starting to pop off. I don't actually know when this was. In my mind, this is 2024, but I'm going to guess this was actually probably like a year-old video, so their profits are actually way down here probably by now. So I don't know how much money they have to lose before they realize that it's not working and it's time to move on. I mean, that's just the way it is. But that's just my opinion.
Disney was worth the most ever. $341 billion. They lost $140 billion from the day they fired you.
And I think, honestly, Hollywood's shook. I think they're shook. I think they see the hypocrisy. I think they see the double standard. And I read this somewhere. It's like, don't try to ruin my life with lies when your life can be ruined with the truth.
Yeah, poor Gina. She got screwed over. I actually completely forgot about that whole Gina situation, but yeah, that sucks. That sucks.
Somehow Palpatine returned.
Hello, Star Wars Weekends fans. How you doing?
Number 4, The Rise of Skywalker. Somehow, Disney Star Wars made Finn more of a joke. Somehow, Rey finds a knife that's also a map that leads to another map to help find a secret Sith base in the middle of the desert on planet Coachella. Somehow, they fly now.
They fly now? They fly now? They fly now? They fly now?
Somehow, the Death Star from Return of the Jedi, which was vaporized, now has large pieces intact. Somehow, there's horsies on a Star Destroyer. Somehow, Palpatine got laid and had children who gave birth to a granddaughter named Rey. Somehow, Grandpappy Palpatine, with the help of his granddaughter Rey, unintentionally, was able to wipe out the Skywalker line, and that was considered a victory. And somehow, Rey ends up with the Skywalker name in a film that should have been called The Rise of Palpatine.
Where's Ben? Where the is Ben?
Rey Skywalker.
Catch it, bitch!
At the beginning, there was toying with like an Obi-Wan connection, and then it really went. There were like different versions, and then it really went to that she was no one. And then it came to episode 9, and JJ pitched me the film and was like, "Oh yeah, Palpatine's granddaddy," and I was like, "Awesome." And then 2 weeks later, he was like, "Oh, we're not sure." So he kept changing.
Okay, that is exactly the issue with the sequel trilogy altogether. Where was the plan? Where was the plan? Honestly, you can complain about the prequels all you want, but there was a plan. And sure, George changed his mind here and there, right? But ultimately, the original trilogy, there was a relatively sized plan there. The prequel trilogy, there was a relatively sized plan there. Nothing is ever 100% concrete. Things change. That's the way it is. But the sequel trilogy, man, what happened was they got JJ to make part 7. He didn't want to do part 8. So they brought someone else to do part 8. And instead of following his idea for part 8, or JJ's part 8, Ryan did his own, like, episode 7, effectively. He kind of did his own movie with the same characters. And then JJ comes back and he does his episode 8 and 9, his original one, before he left the project, and turns that into episode 9. So you're not getting a part 1, part 2, and part 3, you're getting a part 1, you're getting another part 1, and then you're getting a part 2 and 3 as part 3 of this trilogy. It's just so dumb. It's so dumb. Crazy how they messed this up. Honestly, so messed up. I talked about this so much in the past. It still irks me. Like I said, Star Wars just makes me sad now when I talk about it. But let's continue.
How Disney was able to talk Jar Jar Abrams into coming back and making the dumbest and worst Star Wars movie ever made.
If you guys had the opportunity to continue your character stories on a Disney Plus series, would you take it?
Nope.
I fucking love you.
Oh, I really don't like it. It'll be all right.
There's nothing more important than knowing where you're going. And the lesson is that, you have to plan things the best you can. And you always need to be able to respond to the unexpected. And the unexpected can come in all sorts of forms. And I do think that having a plan, I have learned in some cases the hard way, is the most, critical thing, because otherwise you don't know what you're setting up.
Today, I am proud to announce the Walt Disney Company is acquiring Lucasfilm, the global entertainment company founded by George Lucas and the home of the legendary Star Wars franchise.
People don't realize this, but especially like younger people who might not have been, in the sphere back then, but when they signed these papers, this was the idea that this is where Star Wars came back alive. Because before then, that was it. George had no plans on making more movies. Sure, he had the show going on at the time, Clone Wars. But at the time, Revenge of the Sith was the last movie. So when we saw this shot of George signing the paper, what that said to us was Disney's back. But little did we know, it was the nail in the coffin. This moment was supposed to be the moment that brought Star Wars back into the fold, and it was the thing that killed it. So disappointing.
In addition to getting the rights to one of the greatest family franchises and epic stories of all time, Disney is also acquiring all of Lucasfilm's operating businesses, including Industrial Light and Magic and Skywalker Sound. George Lucas is a true visionary and an innovative epic storyteller who has defined modern filmmaking with unforgettable characters and amazing stories. The Star Wars universe now has more than 17,000 characters, inhabiting several thousand planets and spanning 20,000 years. And this gives Disney infinite inspiration and opportunities to continue the epic Star Wars saga. Fans can expect a new feature film, Star Wars Episode 7, in theaters worldwide in 2015.
Listen to those fans. Everyone had so much hope. We all had so much hope. We were all so hopeful.
The fun of celebrating the return of these characters that we know is certainly a part of this movie, but I never felt like we were telling a story about Leia, Luke, or Han necessarily. It felt like a story about a generational handoff. But this was really a story about Rey, about Finn, about Poe, and about Kylo Ren. And you can't have that handoff without cost.
Number 3, The Force Awakens and the killing of Han Solo. At the time, an insanely popular blockbuster, there is no denying, and the major motion picture Hollywood equivalent of clickbait. And the world started to understand what Star Trek fans knew for a few years. Jar Jar Abrams is a hack. After making a soft reboot or outright remake of what some will call Episode 4 A New Hope and us old guys will call Star Wars, our new group of cardboard cutout characters or straight up Mary Sue's meander through this creative bankrupt disaster filled with jangling keys and member berries, following a map that leads them to Luke Skywalker, who doesn't speak a single line of dialogue in this film. While Disney would like you to believe that the fans didn't like the female lead or the character of colors, The Force Awakens' worst crime was the vandalization and murder of the character Han Solo. Harrison Ford seems to like to return to legacy characters and make them absentee fathers like Rick Deckard and Indiana Jones. And it's no different in this case. Han Solo has regressed to pre-Star Wars form, who's become an absentee father and bailed on his wife, Princess Leia. That might have been over her demotion to general, but that's not important right now. Now it's widely known that Harrison Ford wanted Han Solo to die in Return of the Jedi and only agreed if he died here, and this is why you shouldn't listen to adult pretenders, even ones as great as Harrison Ford. Instead of riding off into the sunset, or at the very least dying a hero, he goes out like a punk, dying a pointless death at the hands of his son. And that sealed the deal and led to one of the worst cinematic mistakes in Hollywood's history. The reason everybody showed up to this film is because of the promise of Han, Luke, and Leia reuniting, and that was now not going to happen for a film or even a scene.
I can't believe they messed that up. Like, I do think there is a little bit of a revisionist history when it comes to The Force Awakens. The majority of the fan base, it seems like, views Episode 7 as if it was good, but when it came out, it wasn't considered good. And maybe bad is a harsh word, because it wasn't technically considered bad. It's just we were all like, yeah, that was all right. That's pretty much what we were all like. We were just like, it was all right. It was very much like A New Hope. It was kind of like A New Hope light version, effectively. You had the new Rebellion, you had the new Empire. They have different names, the Resistance and the First Order, but you still had those elements. It was very familiar to A New Hope, and it was purposely made that way because it was a soft reboot. You have to remember, at this time, this would have been like 2015, but when they were developing this, it was like 2012 or 2013. So there was still this stigma against the prequels. You know, there was still this idea that the prequels were just instantly bad to a lot of these executives and story writers who are making these stories. So they were trying to make these sequels very much like the original trilogy and pretty much just pushing anything that is prequel related aside. Like he mentioned earlier in the video with the one older guy who hands over the thing. He's like, this will make everything right. That first line is supposed to make it sound like, hey, forget about the prequels. We're gonna do them right. We're gonna do sequels right. And that made a lot of people mad. Now, I remember when The Force Awakens came out, that's around the same time I started doing mostly exclusively Star Wars content. And I remember saying stuff like this and people kind of giving me some backlash. And as time went on, it became more fruitful. People started realizing, you know what, maybe he was right about the prequels being kind of pushed aside, and they totally were. Now we're in a completely different situation where the prequels are considered cool. And so now they're doing all these different things to pay homage to the prequel fans. And it's one of those things where, like, why did you have to do that? Like, why did you have to push the prequel fans away and only focus on the original trilogy fans and effectively do a soft reboot to kind of reset everything so they can go on another adventure that's more akin to the originals compared to the prequels? It was just ultimately very disappointing and like weird for them to do that. Now in modern day, The Force Awakens is considered the best of the sequels, and so I think that's why it's put on that pedestal, but at the time it was considered pretty mid. Now, with all the complaints you might hear about The Force Awakens, there was one thing we could all agree on, that Episode 8 was going to be amazing. Because Episode 7, while it was a rehash of Episode 4 from a certain perspective, it had set the stage for a really cool Episode 8 and 9 at least. There was something there. It was the easiest underhand ball. All Episode 8 had to do was crack that bad boy over the fence. And it completely struck out. Let's check it out.
I don't want to freak anybody out here, but I think we just made a Star Wars movie.
Now I am become death, the destroyer of worlds.
Number 2, The Last Jedi. A divisive failure that will be analyzed till the end of time. Rian Johnson's subversion of expectations simultaneously ended some YouTube careers and launched hundreds with thousands of hours of content, and it also became the hill the access media died on. Whether it's continuing the story of characters that range from bland to Mary Sue, proving all the Snoke theories didn't suck because what Rian Johnson came up with was much worse.
I didn't want you to be blindsided. It climaxes with a spectacular death of Snoke. I'm sorry, but it's glorious. Just says like, sit and did the page back. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So
I'm a genius. You're fucking wankers. You'll never see me again. You don't deserve to see me again.
Turning the character of Finn into more of a clown, putting Reylos on the map, putting an anti-capitalist message in the Canto Bite scene within a film that cost $300 million from a multi-billion-dollar corporation, to introducing the insufferable Admiral Holdo, and making Princess Leia insufferable.
You start an attack, you follow it through. You're demoted.
Whoa, wait. We took...
oh, it's so nice. It feels like it feels so good.
And then following it up with the second most cringe scene in Disney Star Wars.
Okay, hot take. I actually like this scene. I think this is one of the only scenes in The Last Jedi that I actually think gets too much hate. All of their stuff, completely understanding. I get it. But I dig this shot. I'm okay with it. I get the hate, like I said, but I actually dig it.
That's great. I don't know. I just immediately adored her from the start.
There's a lot of suck to choose from, but the single biggest crime against imagination is what Rian Johnson did to Luke Skywalker, taking the beloved character who was a farm boy who ultimately helped save the galaxy and redeem his irredeemable father, and turn him into a quitter who ran away from all of his friends and family because he had a bad dream and almost killed his nephew.
And I think it's just because the attitude of tossing on the go worked really well. So it's still keeping that kind of like.
Well, see, again, I mean, and I told Brian this, it's no surprise. I said, I just fundamentally disagree with your concept of this character and how you use him.
But why in the hell give fans what they want? No one wants to see a Jedi Master Luke Skywalker at full power kicking ass when you can watch the hero of generations become a bitter old man who drinks blue milk out of a manatee titty, gets his ass kicked by a girl, and ODs on the Force.
Wow.
And the rest is herstory. The well-earned fan backlash was swift and unrelenting. Couple that with the gaslighting media and Rian Johnson not taking the criticism very well, it devolved into a PR disaster for Disney over the next 2 years. Little did we know at the time that this wasn't a one-off, it was the beginning of a new era in Hollywood, and things would get much, much worse.
Okay, so before we jump into the last one here, I don't know what he's going to do number one. I actually thought Last Jedi was going to be the number one. But yeah, when Last Jedi came out, I actually liked it. I know. The first time I watched it, I liked it. And then I started thinking about it. And then I realized I don't actually like it at all. One of my rankings on here, one of my earliest rankings, I actually put like The Last Jedi at like number 5 or something. But the problem with The Last Jedi is that it just does not respect what makes Star Wars Star Wars. And like I said, I have a ton of videos on that in my past. You want to go back into the catalogs and check out what I have to say. Everyone else on the internet has given their thoughts on The Last Jedi. This is my thought. I think if Rian Johnson had his own story, if he wasn't telling episode 8 or 9 at that matter, if he was telling any other story with his own different characters, even if you took this story and you changed characters around, obviously, to make it make sense, I think it would actually be a good movie. And that's the thing that bothers me the most about The Last Jedi. It is a pretty solid standalone film. Well, minus the Canto Bight stuff. That stuff's trash. But it's a pretty solid standalone film. But as soon as you place that film into the Star Wars mythos as potentially the most important film of the entire franchise, the one setting up to the finale, and failing so bad, I realized not only is it not a good film, it is the worst Star Wars movie, and it does not deserve to be made. I'm glad people like it. Like I said, I understand the idea from a cinematic point of view. The cinematography, the looks, the visuals in this movie are probably the best out of any Star Wars movie we've seen. But when it comes to the story, the characters, the fucking Canto Bight, like I mentioned, it's so bad. It's almost comical that this thing even got fucking made. Like I said, guys, I was a massive Star Wars fan, and while The Force Awakens kind of hindered me a little bit when that came out, Rogue One was like, alright, so I was like, okay, I still like Rogue One, we're cool. And then The Last Jedi came out, and that was like the first step of truly breaking me as a fan. And honestly, I actually think Rise of Skywalker is better than Last Jedi, and I think it's because The Last Jedi broke me, and so I didn't really know how to feel about The Rise of Skywalker. And there's some elements of The Rise of Skywalker I actually do kind of dig. So I think I'm going to rewatch the films with this new lens of all movies being complete for over 5 years. I'm going to take a look at them again and re-rank them. And the truth be told, maybe I'll rewatch The Last Jedi and I'll get it. And maybe I'll understand what people are talking about when I see some people actually defending it. But as far as like a Star Wars movie goes, it is a bad Star Wars movie. Would it be a good standalone Star Wars movie? For sure. I think it'd be pretty solid. But as an episode 8, terrible. Completely terrible. With that said, guys, let's see what their number 1 is. I don't know what they're going to pick. It's actually going to catch you by surprise.
If you told me 40 years ago when I was a youngster who used to get made fun of for liking Star Wars when it was cool that I would be making fun of Star Wars, I'd say you're crazy, but here we are. Number 1, The Acolyte.
Oh, I forgot about this show.
I'm still crying.
I didn't even watch this one.
Can I see yours? That's wild.
This one's wildly photorealistic.
That's crazy.
You just have like a face destined to be 3D scammed. Okay, sorry, I was dumbfounded. I need to see your guys's.
Oh, I have a little earring. The most fashionable Jedi ever.
It's so sad.
Wait, we can make them fight.
Let's make them fight, please.
The Acolyte, a show that was in development for 4 years from former personal assistant to Harvey Weinstein, Leslie Headland, was a murder mystery about 2 twins played by one actress the exact same way, who were conceived by a coven of communist lesbian space witches without a man, who just wanted to practice their communist space lesbian witch ways freely from the oppression of the Jedi, who are the bad guys in this show. It also features Queermere, at least I think that's what his name is, a Sith who just wants to freely practice the dark side of the Force free of the Jedi oppression, and a show whose pitch made Kathleen Kennedy cry turned into a non-stop meme machine, including in no particular order, fires in space, giant stone structures catching on fire, leading to the death of the communist lesbian space witches. The best actor in the series can't speak English.
I will contact Master Fanestra, the Jedi will meet us. There is a versions on this planet. You're not even sisters. You're...
Room temperature IQ Jedis getting murdered, Jedis committing suicide, Jedi-abetes.
Anger is not the way of the Jedi. You okay?
I love that
and
video.
The single most cringe scene in Disney Star Wars history.
Power of 1, the power of 2,
The power of many.
the power of 1, the power of 2, the power of
Many. so good. It's so good.
And after watching this intersectional feminist fever dream, it's no surprise Lucasfilm ran with the preemptive fan attacks. And they didn't stop there. No, star Amandla Stenberg thought it was a great idea to attack the fans with the diss track. But they got one thing right. It was the gayest Star Wars ever. And the best unintentional comedy in years. Sadly and unsurprisingly, The Acolyte, shortly after its finale, was canceled. This was followed by the Access Media and Star Wars channels that just coincidentally were recently at Lucasfilm visiting with showrunner Leslie Headland lost their minds. Now, a rational person might surmise that this was canceled because the show cost between $180 and $230 million and no one watched it. But of course, it's the fans' fault for not watching the show that wasn't made for them. The Acolyte did have some passionate fans. There just wasn't enough. Because it's easier to believe the lie than face the truth. Those toxic fans were right all along. The Acolyte is everything Kathleen Kennedy wanted her Star Wars to be. It's Disney Star Wars in its final form. And it just so happens to be its biggest failure, a culmination of events stemming from Lucasfilm's actions and behaviors towards the fans they took for granted. And the truth remains, Kathleen Kennedy and her ilk broke the money printing machine that was Star Wars, taking an intellectual property that could have lasted forever and stamped it with an expiration date that's passed. And it looks like turning Star Wars from a boy brand that everyone can enjoy into a girl brand no one can enjoy has proven to be the costliest decision in movie history. That's our list. If you don't agree with us, feel free to discuss it or make your own in the comments section below. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And as always, you can check out another video right now.
All right, awesome video, so good, such a good video. Nerdrotic. I think I've heard of them before, but I don't watch much of them. But definitely go check them out. I'll leave a link to that in the description below. Guys, do you know if you're at a job and you don't do your job right, you get fired, right? So please tell me how Kathleen Kennedy has been in charge of this whole Star Wars situation since 2015. Sure, she had some ups, but she has consistently failed and has lost the company so much money. How does she still have her job? How? So my theory is this. I think she has some crazy good dirt on Bob Iger. I think she knows something about him that no one else knows, and she blackmailed him into keeping her job. There's no reason she should still be in her job. Like I said, if you are bad at your job and you're not able to do it, you get fired. That's how all jobs work. So why is she still in charge? It doesn't make sense. All right, like I said, guys, as you can tell, I am very passionate for Star Wars because Star Wars was a big part of my life growing up. And like I mentioned earlier, when Disney first bought Star Wars from George Lucas, it was like a second breath of life for the franchise. And for me, it was like my childhood effectively being reawakened. And unfortunately, it's just not what it could have been. And so, if you like current Star Wars, I'm so glad for you. I'm so happy that you enjoy Star Wars, but for me, it's just not meant for me anymore. I would like to think that one day it would turn around, but it's one of those things where, like, how many times can you strike out and still keep on trying the same thing? It's the definition of insanity. So, I don't know. But what do you guys think? Did you guys agree with this list? Do you disagree? Let me know in the comments below. What's the one thing that you think Disney Star Wars had failed at the most? And actually, what's the worst thing? And then what's the best thing they've done? Let me know in the comments below. I'd like to check that out. Maybe I'll do a video about that then. But thanks again for watching, guys. I know this video is a little longer than what I usually do, but thank you for sticking around if you've been here the whole time. Make sure to like, subscribe, turn notifications for more. And if you want to check out any more of my videos, I have links here on my screen. So go ahead and click over there. But thanks again for watching. I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.